If you haven't heard the newest drama on Steam this week, essentially some shady developers are using the platform's early access model to scam gamers. This came to light recently with the realization that the crappy Steam shovelware game Aiball, which first showed up in early access back in 2016, got an update in 2019. And by update, I mean they changed the game entirely. No longer was it a game that looked like it was a sports-flavored version of Gang Beasts, but now it's a physics obstacle game where you play as rather difficult to control penguins. Now, neither of these games look great. Sure, both of them might be games that deliver their kicks through clunky, hard to control, or goofy physics a la Octodad, but just imagine if you were someone who had actually paid for Aiball and maybe you did enjoy it, or at least enough to want to go back and play the game. And suddenly one day you open your Steam library and it's not there, and it turns out that now you have this crappy Penguin game. On top of this, Aiball had support for Windows, Linux, and Mac, whereas Penguins Cretins is only playable on a PC running Windows. In fact, one of the reasons we even know about this happening was because somebody complained that the game they purchased had disappeared and instead was a game that they didn't buy and in fact couldn't even play on their computer. So how did this happen? And perhaps more importantly, how could this happen? Shouldn't Steam's rules and regulations prevent something like this from occurring? Well, I did the research so you don't have to. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing for more content from us. Let's take it from the top in regards to this change being noticed, Valve being notified, and how they handled it. Various Steam users had started to make note of the change from Aiball to Penguins Cretins. And this got the Sentinels of the store involved, a group of people on Steam who call out game developers who try to break the system for monetary gain or just do other shady stuff that is anti-consumer. Think calling out review manipulation and people who just flip assets and make them into other games to sell. Well, after hearing about the changes on Aiball, they started writing to Steam's support. One person who had in fact purchased Aiball got this response. It seems like the producer of the game changed the name, like you mentioned, to Penguins Cretins. I have no information available to me to what the decision behind the name change is. Please keep in mind that the game is listed as an early access game. That means that the name and the content of the game are not a finished product and are subject to change at any given time without notice. If you have further questions about the game, I'd recommend you contact the publisher of the game directly. Now, I'm sure you see the problem in this response. While technically saying, well, the game is in early access, which means it's not finished, so it can be updated or changed at any time is one thing. But for not only the title of the game to change, but the content of the game itself, including the whole Steam page to change, should have sent red flags to somebody working at Valve. But instead, this was how the game stayed for over a year. The game was updated to Penguins Cretins in March of 2019, and nobody had heard anything from the developer ever since. The game hadn't changed back, and the people who bought Aiball were stuck with this crappy Penguin game. That is, until just last week, when, under pressure from both Steam users and Valve, the game's developers, HFM, finally reverted the game to Aiball and issued this response. The change of the game was due to a change of character, which was also based on physics. This is an early version of the game that is changing during development, but as we see, people who bought Aiball do not need any penguins, so we are returning the old name and version of the game. This is ridiculous! For the developer to state, we changed the name because we threw penguins in it but it's still the same physics game is just insulting. The people who bought Aiball do not need any penguins? Get out of here! You changed the game and you got caught! Nobody in the world is going to agree with you that this game was just an early prototype for this game. And keep in mind, this is the first comment from the developers since July of 2016, meaning they went over 3 years without interacting with the people who bought their game at all. Now, here's the interesting part. Is this legal? Can they change the game to the point that it's not even close to the game that somebody purchased 3 years earlier? Technically, yes. If you read Steam's subscriber agreement, you'll come to this section, which reads, Steam may need to automatically update, preload, create new versions of, or otherwise enhance the content and services, and accordingly, the system requirements to use the content and services may change over time. You consent to such automatic updating. Okay, yes. They can update and, quote, create new versions of the games you purchase, but can they change it entirely? Well, let's take a look at a fairly standard EULA, or End User License Agreement. You know, the thing you don't read and skip past so you can play the game you just bought? Here's an example of one that has a section stating, You understand that the software product may be updated or patched at any time, and in doing so, no obligation to provide such updates or patches to you pursuant to this EULA or otherwise shall arise. This basically gives these games the ability to change overnight. Right now, if they really wanted to, EA could change Apex Legends to a single-player pixel art farming sim, and technically they'd be following the letter of the law. However, despite what pop culture might have led you to believe, written word can be overthrown in court, with a little phrase called good faith and fair dealing. Now, for the record, I am not a lawyer, but there is an excellent video where someone who is a lawyer goes over this exact situation. The channel's name is Hoeg Law, and I'll link his in-depth analysis on this down below. I'm basing most of my understanding of the legal precedent of the situation based on what he said. According to the American Bar Association, fair dealing usually requires more than just honesty. It generally requires that a party cannot act contrary to the spirit of the contract, even if you give the opposing party notice that you intend to do so. Now, I don't think it's wild to say that changing the game entirely is maybe contrary to the spirit of the contract. Sure, if they were just updating the game, adding in new features, maybe even changing a few mechanics, that would be fine. But we all know they simply changed the game. The reasoning behind this is that they probably weren't getting a lot of sales on a 3-year-old early access game. A game that they clearly had no intentions of finishing. And instead of going through the hassle of getting a new game on Steam, which can take time, not to mention the fact that you have to pay Steam to put a game up. And on top of this, if you look at Steam's page to developers on early access games, they state, "We take our relationship with customers seriously. So if you choose to cancel development of a game and retire it from the store, we will not republish it later, and we may offer refunds to any users who purchased it." And therein lies the rub. If I had to guess, the developers simply wanted to avoid paying a fee to publish a new game. And they didn't want Steam to potentially offer refunds to people who purchased Aiball. So they changed their game under the guise of an update. Again, if you're interested in hearing more about the legality of the situation, I definitely recommend checking out the video by Hoeg Law that I mentioned earlier. He spends a lot more time talking about the legality of it, and he has much more authority on the matter, seeing that he is an actual lawyer. But now I want to draw some attention to the other games that have done this as well. Yes, Penguins Cretins was actually just the canary in the coal mine. But there are other games that have abused the early access banner to change the game instead of updating it or releasing a new title on Steam. And y'all, this first one is wild. We have to talk about a game called Tayla Fortune. Now, I'm going to do something I never do in these shows, where I literally drop the entire facade, and I'm just going to read the Steam page of the original release of the game and what it is now, and you'll see why. Okay, so we've got Tayla Fortune. You are a beginner pirate, and it depends only on you how rich you will become and how your fate will go. You and your crew in search of riches. That's not even a sentence. Travel through a huge world full of adventure and danger. And as you can see, it's a little pirate game. Cool, art style. It's voxel art style. Visit unexplored cities where you can trade. Search the underground full of treasures. Fight in the epic naval battle. Muster and select the crew to the ship. Have fun in taverns. Hunt for merchant ships, and many more. I feel like... Yeah, listen... We know that English is not their first language. But this seems fine. It's a low-budget game on Steam. Some of this stuff doesn't look that bad, but let's compare this with what it looks like now. Oh, okay. And instantly, we're going to have to blur out what this game is. Okay, let's read this description. Sexy anime girls are ready for pleasure. Okay. Yes. Make them hot and see what they can do when they are aroused and wild. I'll scroll down to get rid of that. Tayla Fortune consists of 2 games. Okay, so they doubled the value. First, you are in a beautiful city inhabited by hot anime girls who love white liquid. Okay. If it is sprayed, they become wild and show their sexy wild characters. Look for them in the city and in some homes and see that they are really sexy. Remember to go to the sex temple where you will meet them all 16 together. The second part is a simple RPG. Okay, there you go. You know, you had me in the first half, not gonna lie. Now, here I am. Where you can take on one of two characters, and with the help of a sword, bow, or magic, fight with goblins, spiders, and other creatures. You can also develop your characters and skills. All naked women used in the game are adult. Okay. Important to note, similar to games I've played, Nier Automata. Great game. I don't know about this one. Again, I cannot show you any of it. And again, I know this is a hypothetical, but just imagine if, you know, you were a child, or maybe you bought your child this crappy voxel-looking pirate game, and then one day suddenly the game gets updated into this, where, you know, you give magic white liquid to the girls and they get sexy wild. So there's just some problems with this one, y'all. And then you have the infamous Lord Cress, a developer who has abused Steam's rules multiple times despite being caught before. In 2015, he uploaded a game called Journey of the Light, which billed itself on Steam as, quote, Journey of the Light might be one of the hardest games on Steam. Well, it turns out it was, because it was literally impossible to get past the first level. Despite there being achievements stating there was 7 chapters and even a bonus 8th chapter, people data mined Journey of the Light and found out there wasn't even other levels coded into the game. After being notified of this, Steam forced him to give refunds to the 700 plus people who bought the game, which was something Lord Cress complained about, although, come on man, just admit you got caught. Lord Cress then later released a game called Voxelized, which was a complete Minecraft ripoff, minus everything that makes Minecraft enjoyable. You can just destroy and replace blocks, no crafting. It remained this way with minor updates for some time, and then on March 29th of 2017, he released Alpha 0.4.2, just a minor update in Lord Cress's words, including improved UI, an added character. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, what does this character look like? Oh shit, he changed the game again. And the real kicker is, this game is just a straight up asset pack for Unity. It's literally a tiny sandbox in which you play as this knight character and walk around. You literally can't do anything in the game. And as of writing this, there are at least 2 more known games that have done this. Like I said, Penguins Cretins has reverted back to Aiball, but none of these other games have. And so I just want to take it back to the statement by Valve to the developers releasing games in early access. Quote, "We take our relationship with our customers seriously." And I have to ask, do you? Because this is an odd way of showing it. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, and I hope you did, please consider subscribing for more content from us, or giving a like to the video, as it greatly helps our visibility on the platform. Also, maybe head over to our Discord, where we've managed to cultivate a pretty chill place to talk about gaming. And while you're at it, consider following us on our Twitch channel, where we do a weekly talk show all about gaming news. But either way, thank you so much again for watching, and until next time, have a wonderful day.